Hello everybody, Kong Spideyzilla, finally after 2 months ago back with another video. Now I'm doing better, I'm ready to get back into the video making. Sorry it took me a long time, but I'm finally back. I got over my ear infection, I'm doing a lot better now, and I'm gonna go see a certain movie on Sunday, April 7th I believe, so you could probably just by looking at the video what it's gonna be, obviously, 100%. Obviously, it's Godzilla X Kong the New Empire, so you definitely knew. And whose feet are you wondering above the screen? Yeah, that's these two guys. My playmates, Roaring Godzilla, giant mega figure, and then my giant Kong. Now, there's a giant Godzilla that's all blue. He's smaller than this guy, but he doesn't roar, but he's all blue, and he's more in scale and size with this guy. And then there's the Mega Roaring Kong, which I unboxed and you saw. I obviously have those still, but in my opinion, I just wanted to have these two out because I don't know, I like accurate scaling with my kaiju figures, and I think these two bigger figures scale well to each other. So that's why I have these guys out. And I know this Kong's color is very inaccurate, but he reminds me of Peter Jackson's King Kong, so that's why I really like this figure. Despite the inaccurate paint job, but I still really like this guy. Uh, so, um, here is the Monsterverse recap, and what is this gonna be? It's, I know it's gonna be another ranking video, but get this. I just watched the movies tomorrow, all four of them, and now I guess you could say they're fresh in my mind, and I'm gonna have some things different to say this time. So, without further ado, here we go. And fun fact, I did take the slipcovers off of my Godzilla 2014 Blu-ray copy and my Godzilla vs. Kong Blu-ray copy, just so I can just make it more fit, and I can just make it fit better. As I always like to say, starting off with the one that started it all, Godzilla 2014. Now, over the years, my history with this film, my opinions changed on it. You probably all know me from back in the day, in my days of being the YouTuber McFlurry. When I was younger, I didn't like this movie. I just thought it was too different, and for me as a kid, I always just thought it wasn't the same magic to me as the Japanese Godzilla movies from Toho. And they just never had that charm, never had that same magic. Just, and it was too different for me back then. I didn't like it. As the years went on, I was like, is this movie, do I really hate this movie? Should I really do? And then, but then, there was a side of me I don't feel like watching the movie right now. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, and I thought that movie was gonna be exactly like this one, just like, oh no, it's gonna be bad, I'm not gonna like it. And then I saw the trailers, and the trailers look kind of promising. I was like, okay, it's not looking so bad, surprisingly. And then I went to go see it in the theater, and then my mind was blown. I already talked about this experience, like probably one of my favorite movie experiences of all time. My mind was legitimately blown, and still is to this day. And it surprised the heck out of me. I didn't think it was gonna be if this is gonna be a good movie, it's just gonna be averagely good. I'm just gonna averagely enjoy it, and then, whew, it wasn't just averagely good. It was an awesome, amazing film, in my opinion, at least. And it's not a masterpiece, nowhere near one, but I enjoy it as it is one, in my opinion. And yeah, once again, speaking of my opinion, warning, my opinion on all these films, it's gonna be my opinion, my perspective, and my life, basically. So, I'm not speaking the facts, these are all just opinions. So, if you think one of these movies is terrible and the rest are good, and you think Well, heck, even if you think all the Monsterverse films are terrible in their own way, or even if you just think one movie's good and just the rest are sucky, like Kong Skull Island, or, Godzilla 214, or only the good ones, the rest are sucky. Or if you think if you don't like Skull Island or 2014 and you like King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, it doesn't matter what opinion it is. This is just my opinion, and you have your own. And I respect your opinion, but just possibly hardcore disagree. Disagree. Agree to disagree. It's what us humans do. We're just meant to all be different and have different opinions. So, warning, these are going to be my own opinions. One more time. My own personal opinions. I have to say that because, including myself in certain points, we kind of seem to forget to say that, and it causes strife, and some people these days tend to forget what opinions are, and they think opinions don't matter. So warning, my opinion. So now, here is Godzilla 2014. Now, rewatching this movie again, so yeah, more on the history with Godzilla King of the Monsters. Up from the Depths uploaded his Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters comparison, and I watched that. And it's almost like his review in comparison inspired me. Like, maybe 2014 wasn't such a bad movie. Maybe I should go back and watch it. And this was at the time I matured more too. I matured more, and I grew older. And plus, I have autism. It just, I mature pretty differently. Basically, heart, mind, and soul. I'm always gonna stay technically just a more mature kid. That's who I am, though. Um, but I do get slightly older, I do get a little bit more mature, slightly, and I do get um a bit better at certain things, only a bit better. And I decided to go back and watch Godzilla 2014, and I was like, this movie is not that bad. It's not bad, actually. I was completely wrong about this. The movie's pretty good. I think it was pretty good when I saw it then. And I think I watched it those two times, and I was like, it's a good movie. I'll give it that. It's decent. Now that I rewatched it again, oh, this movie, I didn't have that much of a reaction to rewatching it. I didn't. I it got not that much of emotion out of me. I didn't get that much of a reaction out of me. Just more like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's good. Well, that's well done. I appreciate that. That's pretty good. Yeah. And then there were some major parts of the movie I was just bored. Like, no offense, I was pretty bored. Like I know it's supposed to be dark and gritty and serious, and you're supposed to have all these dark black and brown colors everywhere. But with the color theme, sometimes a bit of very dark red. But it just made the movie in a way slightly even more boring. Now it's not all boring. The film, it's the second act. The second act is boring. The first act of the movie, I'd say, is pretty strong. It's pretty good. The first act of the film is pretty good. The second act for me is where it starts to fall a bit. And the third act, it's in between for me. It's in between. Funny enough, if this opinion sounds familiar to you, it's actually Monster Island Buddy's opinion on 2014. In his, funny enough, his Orga reviews Monsterverse videos. Check those out. Only if you're older enough, because Monster Island Buddy is kind of is for a young adult audience or teenager audience. I would say. And it just, my main complaint with the movie is just, it just feels like another generic disaster American Hollywood monster movie. It just, that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like Godzilla to me. It doesn't, basically what I was thinking as a kid, it just doesn't have the same magic, the same charm as the Toho Japanese Godzilla movies. It just doesn't. Even the ones that are more serious, Shin Godzilla, they have that. Gojira 1954, they have that. I'm pretty sure Minus One, they have that. All those good elements, but like, this movie just, like, you can take out Godzilla and it wouldn't even feel like it. Whereas other movies, you could just not focus on Godzilla and then, like, this looks like the typical, tokusatsu type movie, like it's a kaiju film and that stuff, and it feels like a Godzilla movie. Whereas if you take out Godzilla in this, and you have the Mutos, it just feels like another American monster disaster movie. It just generic too. And I've seen some giant American Hollywood monster movies done better than this. Peter Jackson's King Kong, Cloverfield looked pretty good. Pacific Rim, that had its cool thing going on with it. I know in an older video, Goji fan is like, oh, don't compare these movies. I know, but I just feel like they could have just done better with this movie. I don't know. Which, my own, which creates my own opinion now. I think about it and watching the movie. First act is good. Second act falls flat. Third act is mixed bag for me, which would ultimately create a pretty mid mixed bag movie for me. But because I appreciate what Garrett Edwards tried to do, and at least they tried, and at least they got Godzilla right, and thanks to Godzilla 2014, we now have all of this, and in the movie we have now, and Godzilla Minus One, and Shin Godzilla, and all the other cool Godzilla stuff we have now, and the Godzilla character getting respect, tension, appreciation. I have to put this movie, I have to just rank this movie for me as okay. I'll just rank it as okay. It had its good moments, and I I kind of don't mind watching it again, but like, in my life, it's one of the movies that has the least rewatch value of all time. I'm sorry. Um and it's trying to be like the classics like Jaws, Alien, and Predator and that stuff. In my opinion, I'm sorry, Alien kicks its ass, Predator kicks its ass, Jaws kicks its ass, even the original Jurassic Park kicks its ass. Other Godzilla movie kicks this movie's ass, in my opinion. The original Gojira, by far, the original King Kong versus Godzilla, other good movies. I even like Mothra versus Godzilla better than this one, in my opinion. I liked, I even like a bit more of the mediocre ones that, well, what some Godzilla fans call mediocre, like Godzilla vs. Ghidorah and Godzilla vs. Gigan more. I even think I'll like Godzilla vs. Megalon more. I think I'll even like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla more. Uh, some of the Millennium films, yeah. Some of the Heisei movies, yeah. I feel like Shin Gojira will even does better. Minus One, obviously, like the 1954 movie, dozens of times better. And some people say this is like Gojira 1954. I'm like, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, hardcore disagree. I respect your opinion, but hardcore disagree. I I didn't feel all that much from this movie. I didn't. I didn't. The next three Monsterverse movies made me emotional. This one didn't. I only felt some emotion with Bryan Cranston's character. I just felt pretty bad, and he was one of the aspects holding the film together. Actually, now the rest of the humans, warning, my opinion on the humans in the Monsterverse, they're all just gonna be the same thing. Just meh. they're just meh. Like, I can't stand them, unlike other people throughout this, you know, throughout the Godzilla fan base and Monsterverse fan base and Kong fanboy fan base. I'm one of the fans that can actually stand the humans. Like, I don't mind them that much, but they're just kind of mid. But I can stand them. I don't mind them. I have the same feeling, although I like some slightly better than others, though. Like, in my opinion, sorry, but the rest of the humans in this movie, I'm not all that intrigued with them. I'm more intrigued with the humans in the next three MonsterVerse films. Like, I wasn't all that intrigued that much. I'm sorry. Comparison, if this is trying to be also like other movies like Alien, Jaws, and Predator, those move. You want to know what had good human characters? Oh yeah, even Jurassic Park for comparison. Those did. Those had great, enjoyable human characters. You followed them throughout the movie. You connected with them. You cared for them. Here, it's like I kind of care for the Brody family, kind of, but I wasn't all that intrigued with the human side. And just like, okay, when's Godzilla gonna show up again? When something's gonna happen. And there was the and no offense, I was trying to pay attention to the movie, but I was bored at the second act that I easily got distracted by something else. I was petting my pet one of our cats, and then I was eating cereal while watching the movie. And I'm one of those people that like to eat because, while watching a movie because, reminiscent of the theater. And no joke. I feel like I was paying attention to my food more than the second act of Godzilla 2014. And by the time I got done finished watching the movie, I was just, eh, okay. All right, let's move on. Now let's move on to Godzilla Kong Skull Island now. Like if you like Godzilla 2014, if you enjoy it, if you think it's one of the best Godzilla movies of all time, more power to you. For me, I don't get it. But I'll put it as okay because it did special and good things for the Godzilla franchise, and I highly appreciate for what Gareth Edwards tried to do for this movie. And if you look at it how he intended it his way, then fine. That's that's pretty good. It's a good Godzilla movie, but for me, in my opinion, I just think it's okay. It's like in the mid tier, a personal enjoyment, but I'll put it as okay because I appreciate for Gareth Edwards trying to do, and for the second American Godzilla movie after '98, it actually tried good for once. And believe me, too, guys, I tried to really like this movie, like you guys did, but 2014. I'm sorry, I just can't get into it all that much. But I'm putting it in okay. I'm putting it all right. It's fine. The film has its highlights, definitely. The Kiss of Death, that's cool. The tail whip kill with the male Muto, that's cool. Godzilla's first appearance, it's cool. The build-up is well done. The CGI is really good. The scaling, and it has some pretty good realism in the story. But because I don't care for 2014 that much in terms of enjoying a film compared to other movies I like in my life, I don't. And because I like being fiction is part of Godzilla's charm. It's part as a franchise. And just full on fiction. Even 1954, it had that fictional element to it. Whereas it's for me, Godzilla, one of those things. I'm not into it being realistic or giving it a realistic take. Like, and I'm also saying I don't care for the style of 2014 all that much because number one, it feels like another typical generic giant American monster disaster movie. Sorry, I'm sounding like a broken record, but that's the best. That's the best and only thing I can describe it. And in my opinion, and not the same magic, not the same charm, not the same element. In my opinion, it tries though. It tries. I see it tries, and it kind of does, but it just doesn't hit it with me. It do, it just doesn't hit right with me. If you think this movie's a masterpiece, then that's fine. Like I said, more power to you. I respect your opinion. I can see why this movie would be a masterpiece, but I can't get it. I can't get into it. For me, masterpieces that this movie is trying to kind of be based, like Garrett Edwards was inspired by, those movies are masterpieces. The original Jurassic Park, Jaws, Alien Predator, those movies are masterpieces. Even Aliens, the sequel to the first Alien movie. And at the time, I think my experience with Godzilla 2014 also has something to do with this because a lot of people like the build up and this and that. It's like now when I watch the movie, just I already know what's gonna happen. I already expect it. So therefore, actually, the build up does not mean all that much to me. I'm sorry, but it's in some way I can call it a good, well done film, and I appreciate it as a movie still. Even though it's kind of a mixed bag for me, it mostly lands an okay. I can some way, shape, or form call it, I guess, a good, well done Godzilla movie in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's just my opinion. But there's Godzilla 2014. Oh yeah, if you want to know about the soundtrack was well done, but in terms of a Godzilla soundtrack, I'm sorry, it just wasn't my cup of tea. It's not my music when I think of Godzilla. When I think of Godzilla, I think of more like this, or the Heisei era, or the Showa era, or the Millennium era. Not really this movie, but I appreciate the composer still, and I appreciate what he tried to do. At least he tried to mimic a coupe's feel, and I did kind of like the music in the movie, but it's it's just it doesn't like the movie itself. It's just okay for me. Just I prefer soundtracks in other Godzilla movies and other Godzilla stuff. Obviously, the original Godzilla 1954. And for me, I'm sorry, this movie would never be in Infinity. Would be the original 1954 classic masterpiece. Sorry, that's my opinion. And if you think it is, more power to you. But in my opinion, it doesn't. But agree to disagree. Different opinions. You have yours, I have mine. All right. Kong Skull Island. I am so glad I rewatched this movie again. I had a blast rewatching it. It is such a fun monster flick all the way around. It's just never I was once bored with it. I kind of entertained all the way through. Marlowe, played by John C. Riley, is my favorite character out of the whole movie. All these movies have like a favorite human character of mine. For Godzilla 2014, it was Bryan Cranston. For Kong Skull Island, Marlowe, played by John C. Riley. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters, it was Dr. Sarazawa, played by Ken Watanabe. And Godzilla vs. Kong, it was Gia. This one, it was Marlowe, played by John C. Riley, my favorite character in the movie, and I like the opening scene. The opening scene is so badass. It's just so good and so well done, and it's just an interesting premise. This is like taking place like in the Vietnam War. It's like, whoa, and that adds some seriousness to the story. And Samuel Jackson made a good human villain in the movie. He was like my second favorite human character. Um, John Goodman was a pretty good human character too in the movie. I like his line delivery. He was a cool character. He was like the Denim character in a way. Um, Brie Larson, she's you can call her the Andero of the movie, but she also kind of reminds me of Jeff Bridges' character from, I believe that's his name, from 1976 remake of Godzilla vs. Kong. So she kind of for me, she kind of seems like a little bit of a mashup between those two characters to me, a little bit. So Tom Hiddleston, I think, in my opinion, he was pretty badass. I kind of liked him in the movie. Um, And I know the humans, like, they're doing some pretty horrible stuff in this movie with the bombing of the island and all that stuff. pretty terrible. But hey, that's where Kong comes in and just whoops their ass, and he teaches them a lesson not to mess with his island. And you know, like Marlo says, you don't go and dropping bombs on somebody's home unless you're picking a fight. And I like the line deliveries in the movie, like John C. Riley's character. That's Kong. He's king around here. And then with the skull crawlers, like they're saying, who killed your friend? And he's like, them. You know, the devils live below us and that stuff. And they're like, the natives don't speak their name. And he's like, I call them skull crawlers. And it just leads to a funny scene. And I don't mind any little bit of humor put into these movies, by the way. I don't know. Humor can be pretty subjective. Comedy can be pretty subjective. In my opinion, I like a couple of laughter sprinkled into my pretty serious movies and that stuff. In my opinion, but I know it can be overkill, but still, just my opinion. I just like the music they play in this movie. Just in this, the soundtrack in the movie, it was all right. Um, there was some parts I liked about it better than Godzilla 2014. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion, but in terms of liking it as much as Godzilla 2014 soundtrack, I'll give the slight edge to Godzilla 2014 soundtrack because it's more iconic and it's more memorable. But I kind of find the soundtrack pretty okay, actually, in my opinion. The action is really great in this movie. Kong, he is a badass. He's a savage in this movie. He is really cool in this film. I do feel some form of sympathy, and I do kind of care for him in this movie. But the downfall with his character in this movie, he doesn't have a lot of character or personality, in my opinion. He doesn't, and I don't feel for him the same emotional level as some of these like Peter Jackson's King Kong, and I think I even felt more bad for 1976 King Kong. But Kong in this movie still great, still awesome. I like the unique creatures on Skull Island. That's pretty cool. Good CGI effects. I like the colors in this movie. The colors in this movie are really good. I like the orange in this movie. Really good as well. And you just basically just have your good moments. And in my opinion, I see passion put into every single one of these four Monsterverse films. Even the next one, The New Empire. And that can be a pretty big point, in my opinion. If you at least put some form of passion into your project, into your art. And funny enough, the emotional aspect for me in this movie wasn't involved with Kong all that much. It was actually with Marlo in the end returning back home to his family. Like that scene just hit me deep. Like that is just emotional for me. Like dang. And in my opinion, you got some pretty good pacing. I mean, it's like the original 1933 King Kong. They get into the island pretty quickly. They're already on the island. I like the fight scenes involving Kong, and I have a special experience with this movie too, only because. And another thing, when it comes to me liking a movie, I have to have a special experience with it. I don't know, that may sound corny or ridiculous, but in my opinion, well, it really is just my opinion. It's my perspective. In my opinion, I have to have that good experience with the movie. And, I saw this movie in the theater back in 2017, and just like, I had a blast watching it. It was a fun time at the theater with my family. The jump scares got me, which, in my opinion, my warning, in my opinion, it was just an enjoyable movie. I don't like it as much as Peter Jackson's King Kong, but it's still in my opinion, it's still an enjoyable King Kong flick, in my opinion. And I think I even enjoyed watching this movie even more after, watching coming off of 2014, just thinking like, that's an okay film. And then quickly diving into this, like, oh, it feels so much better. Sorry, that's just my opinion. But yeah, Kong Skull Island, you know, great movie in my opinion. I mean, if you even say this movie's your favorite out of the MonsterVerse, like, you know, Like I highly respect your opinion, and I can even kind of agree with you to some extent, actually. But it's definitely more like these two movies are like more of my favorite in my opinion. But this movie's still great though. There are some pretty cool references and Easter eggs in this movie, like to Godzilla 2014, and then to uh what else? To 1962's King Kong versus Godzilla. That was really good with him fighting the Mire Squid. It's funny because it looks more like an octopus to me, but they call it a squid, so I was like, hmm. There's always been that weird confusion with octopuses and squid, funny enough. They are part of the same animal family, though, so. But they're two different species at the same time. That's squid, that's an octopus, but. Kong Skull Island, just enjoyable movie. I like the final battle, the climax, that was really good. So yeah, Kong Skull Island, I really don't have that much else to say about this movie. Really, I do not. But interesting that they tried to base Kong's design off the um Kong from 1933 film. I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, Kong Skull Island. Yeah, my opinion, great, enjoyable film. Highly enjoyed it. I'm so glad I rewatched it again. Then we get to Godzilla King of the Monsters. Same opinion as always, man. Just in my opinion, my own personal opinion. If you think this movie's terrible, fine. More power to you, or whatever. Just agree to disagree. We all have our own opinions, but in my opinion, this movie just it's awesome. It's amazing. I'm sorry. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I'm so shocked it would even get to that level. This movie surprised me when I saw it back in the theater. Just hands down one of my favorite theater experiences of all time. Like, I think it's my second favorite theater experience. Like, I never felt like so much like a kid again watching something in the theater. Like it was like the return of my childhood. It's just like, oh, such an epic movie. Sorry, Goji Fan 93, but shout out to him. But in my opinion, with this movie, I came out more like, what a movie. In my opinion, at least. That was more like to me. And I know some people are making comparisons to MCU. Oh, Godzilla versus Kong and Godzilla King of the Monsters like the MCU. Heck, this is better than the MCU nowadays. These movies do it right. Not like MCU nowadays. I feel like most people would agree that this movie and this movie are better than the current MCU films nowadays. I feel like you guys would highly agree. And yes, it's trying to have that cinematic universe, world building, and all this and that, but it feels like Godzilla. It actually does. It doesn't feel like another generic giant American movie monster disaster film. In my opinion, just like this has the magic, this has the charm, this has the element. Like, yes, this is the American Godzilla movie I wanted. Well, I wanted to get a 1954 type movie, right? But I'm sorry, but I never got that with this movie, in my opinion. It was just okay. But like, man, my opinion, they killed it with this film. At least in my opinion, in my perspective. You don't like the movie, and if you think, even if you think it's a disgrace to the Godzilla film legacy or to the Monsterverse, that's fine. But that's your opinion. But my opinion, just movie is not a masterpiece. It's nowhere near one. But I enjoy it as it is a masterpiece. Yes, there are some flaws with it, like that guy keeps making too much jokes. It's like, no offense, my guy, but shut up already, please. Like, I didn't mind his jokes at first and one later in the movie, but like, it's like, my guy, just stop, please. Yeah, that one was kind of corny, oh, Sarazawa, let him fight action. But, yeah, that one was kind of corny, I'm sorry. But one I did like was Sarazawa's got that lizard juiced. In my opinion, I liked that one. I liked that one. That thing was cringy though with that one character. So Mothra and Godzilla, they got a thing going. It's like, fudge, no, don't say that. No, don't say that. It is a little weird that they have try to have a connection with Godzilla and Mothra in this universe, but it's I don't mind it. Mothra and Godzilla, they're both pretty awesome in this monster cinematic universe. I know, like, why is the mother teaming Emma Russell teaming up with a terrorist is pretty stupid. Alan Jonah was kind of wasted as a villain. And a complaint that some G fans tend to pull out is I was about to almost say pull out of their ass, but pull out was like, oh, this disrespects the message of the 1954 movie. Like, oh, nuclear bombs are good now. I'm like, where is that in the movie? I'm like, you're talking about the nuke that they used to revive Godzilla with? They're talking about the oxygen destroyer? Well, it still shows, in my opinion, here's my headcanon on it. It's meant to show that a lot of humanity, well, there is that side to humanity that they don't learn. I hate to break it to you, but there's that side to humanity they never learn. It's showing that to me. Good people like maybe me, maybe you, and plenty of other people out there, we learn from our lessons. We learn from our mistakes, but there is that side to humanity where they'll never learn a lesson. And they still show that this stuff is still horrible to use in the movie. Like, seriously, you use the fluffing oxygen destroyer, and then you almost kill off Godzilla, and then you help King Ghidorah out. You let the evil one escape and win because of that weapon. You killed plenty of poor little fishies, and now, basically, like that one character said, so we killed our best shot at killing this thing, defeating this thing, or beating this thing? Yes, you did. You idiots. And that's why Sarazawa was like peed off at all of them. It still shows that humanity should not tamper around with this stuff, you know? And they had to use the nuke to revive Godzilla. Godzilla eats nukes all the dang time for breakfast. Those are what his power level is. He spared the people because they helped him out. I know they destroyed his home and used a nuclear bomb and all, but he knew what had to be done. Godzilla knew what had to be done, and they had to do it in order for him to bring him back to fight Ghidorah. I don't know, people are gonna complain, yeah, there's stuff shoved into the movie, but in my opinion, like Godzilla Final Wars, I see this as a legacy movie, and that's another reason why I probably like this movie. It's like another Godzilla Final Wars to me. It's like another awesome legacy tribute movie to the Godzilla series. And I watch this movie and look at it that way because to me, I think that's how it's supposed to be watched from a Godzilla fan's perspective. I and just I enjoy the movie even more that way. Yeah, maybe King Ghidorah here and there gets his ass beaten a little too easily by Godzilla, and he could have been made tougher. And instead of Mothra and Godzilla versus Rodan and King Ghidorah, you should have had Rodan teaming up with Mothra and Godzilla and make it like Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. But still, oh yeah, and you have more human cutaways in this one more than 2013. Like, what type of disgraceful poo is that? But the fight scenes are just that good, epic, and awesome that it just makes me ignore the cutaways, actually. And you see the monsters in the shot, and I didn't mind our human characters in this movie. I kind of start to like them at the end a little bit. I kind of start to care for them slightly at the end. But I'm sorry, in my opinion, the fight scenes are more worth it in this movie. And funny thing, I think this is my favorite version of, oh, do I really want to say that? Probably my favorite version of King Ghidorah because he's just the most evil, intimidating one to me, and he has the most character and personality. And I like how all three of the different heads have their own like personalities, like all three of the different personalities, and Kevin. Hey, that should be the next big Monsterverse versus movie. Make Kevin versus Doug. And there's so much shots in the movie. Just it's a great, amazing film to look at. Just when I look at the shots and the colors in the movie, just like those are such a work of art in my opinion. When it comes to filmmaking, that's my opinion though. But that's in my opinion, a work of art when it comes like the color and some of the shots in the movie. Like watching again. I guess that's one of those movies' weaker points is the CGI. The CGI is not as good as 2014 or Kong School Island. But I honestly didn't mind the CGI in this movie. I didn't. I thought it was pretty passable, okay CGI. It just wasn't as good as 2014 or Kong School Island, and it's a step down from it, unfortunately. And it's even more of a rip because it's supposed to have a bigger budget than those two movies. Like, what the heck happened? You know? But other than that, um, I didn't mind the CGI in this movie, in my opinion. I didn't. And then you see the names at the credits, like in memory of Yoshimitsu Abano. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, but Yoshimitsu Abano, and then Haru Nakajima. Oh, that just hit me hard right there. Like, ooh, it's like, oh, rest in peace. Like, oh, that made me emotional right there too. And the credit scene, Go Godzilla. And I like how crazy this movie gets. And when it comes to films, I like how crazy the story gets. Even just the normal original soundtrack is pretty good and just like epic and cool sounding. But you throw in the Kara Kube music in there, ugh, it just has that oomph to it. You can tell I'm really getting into it, talking about this movie. I like Kong Skull Island. I felt like a kid watching it again. And my theater experience with this movie just incredible in my opinion. As a side thing, in terms of movies, nothing like super duper special in the heart, but like I normally follow the line, fiction is fiction. It's simple, but just I really like it. And then that powerful scene, Sarazawa sacrificing himself to save Godzilla, just great moments like that. And just when Mothra is trying to help Godzilla out and he's like almost dead on the ground, it's just like, oh. And I feel bad for Godzilla and the Monsters, but this movie, I felt bad for him the most. No offense, in 2014, I was just like, it kind of felt a little bit bad for him, but not all that much, no offense. Same thing with Kong and Kong Skull Island, but it Godzilla in this movie, I really felt bad. I did. I felt sympathy for him in this movie. And he's such a badass in this movie. He's just amazing in this movie, in my opinion. But honestly, I do slightly like Godzilla better in this movie because it's more true to how the character should be, in my opinion. But he was still awesome in this movie. Even then, it's like barely. And Mothra, Rodan, they were awesome as well, in my opinion. I know they have a small size. Maybe they're a bit too small and all, but in my opinion, they were awesome in the movie. Just despite the flaws this movie has, the positives for me with this movie easily outweigh the negatives. Easily. So, there you go. That's the King of the Monsters. And the rematch I've been waiting for years, Godzilla vs. Kong. This is my second favorite Godzilla movie of all time. I'm letting you know that. It only gets beaten out for me by Gojira 94. I know it's like, really? This movie? But hear me out here. In my opinion, it just so happened to take elements in my opinion, from the best King Kong and Godzilla movies. Take elements from King Kong 1983. In my opinion, it takes elements from Peter Jackson's King Kong. In my opinion, it takes elements from obviously the original King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962. Obviously, heavily, you can tell. Takes elements from GMK slightly, in my opinion, with how Godzilla, how kind of like just menacing he can be in this movie, and the electronic sound reminds me of the soundtrack in GMK. And they even give off the vibe of like a Ray Harryhausen like monster fight. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, but like Ray Harryhausen, I believe that yeah, it's just like that's so cool. And in my opinion, it takes elements from Godzilla Final Wars with the craziness and that stuff. How crazy this movie can be, in my opinion. Although not as crazy as Godzilla Final Wars, let's admit that, but it still just had it's just like the craziness. And the original Gojira 1954, how he's wrecking stuff, he's destroying stuff, and he's represented as the antagonist and that stuff until the end. You find out he's misunderstood. at least in my opinion. Mechagodzilla, he's like a three-way mashup of the three Mechagodzillas. Like he has that Mechagodzilla 2 vibe to him a little bit. He has a bit of that, obviously that Kiryu vibe, but major Mechagodzilla Showa era vibe. He just feels like a three-way mashup between the Showa Mechagodzilla, the Heisei Mechagodzilla, and the Millennium Mechagodzilla. And you probably see what I mean. And it even took cues and elements from King of the Monsters and Kong Skull Island, in my opinion. So yeah, just the action was really good in this movie. The CGI is great. Godzilla and Kong, they're awesome. They're badass. Especially Kong, major upgrade compared to the first film. I really like this Kong. This Kong is like one of my faves now. Godzilla, I think he's slightly my favorite even more in the Monsterverse because, he's like the anti-hero Godzilla. And then he has that 1954 vibe. He's wrecking and destroying stuff. And, that's what Godzilla, that's one of the things that represents Godzilla. That's why he destroys cities and that stuff. He, threatens humanity. Because when Godzilla is showing an antagonistic side and destroying cities, in my opinion, it reminds me of the 1954 movie, and that's what represents Godzilla. That's what he is. And that's my opinion. And the beast mode moment with Godzilla is just like, it was just like, whoa. Like, I've never seen Godzilla be like that in a movie before in my life. And the emotion was strong in this one with Kong almost dying, and then Gia, my favorite human character of the movie. The storyline with Gia and Kong was great. It was emotional. I felt bad for Godzilla when he was getting his ass whooped by Mechagodzilla. And it gave me just Kaiser Ghidorah vibes from like Final Wars, with Godzilla getting just dominated and thrown around. And yeah, Mechagodzilla was fan service and he was a cash grab and he was forced into this movie. I guess that was one of the things I didn't like about the movie. It would have been better, and I wish it was just King Kong and Godzilla. Nobody else. But I still like Mechagodzilla in the movie. It's still great and awesome to see him again and him fight Godzilla again. And in my opinion, at least I get the best of both worlds. I get to see a team up, and I actually got to see a winner. I know some people are, for some reason, are confused, and which I can understand why. But in my opinion, I can tell who won, and that was Godzilla. Godzilla won. So, and it makes me happy because like now it's equal because Kong won in the original and Godzilla won in this movie. So they're equal playing field now. Can't wait to see these two have a slight rematch though in the new Empire. And there were some elements that the 1962 movie had over this film, but in my opinion, I like this movie much more than the 1962 film. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Like I said, elements that the 1962 movie definitely had over this movie. But I give the edge to Godzilla vs. Kong. And a big reason as to why, in my opinion, in the 1962 film, for me, that was before Godzilla and King Kong became really evolved as characters. That was both of their third movie in the franchise, and technically Kong's second appearance in a movie, because in the second 1933 Kong movie, that was the son of Kong, Kiko. And Godzilla, cool in the movie as always, good, but that was way before, in my opinion, he got to really expand and evolve as a character. But he was still good. He was still great. It's Godzilla, but King Kong in the movie, in my opinion, I respect the suit actors and all. I like the actor. I love the actor who played King Kong, but my least favorite Kong ever, period. I dislike the 1962 King Kong. In my opinion, 1962 King Kong vs. Godzilla kind of disrespected my boy. I'm sorry. Like, I know they pay homage to him, they reference him, but to quote Eric Carter's review, I'm sorry. He's literally a walking dummy in that movie. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. They still show some form of respect and appreciation, and I appreciate that. But I'm sorry. But for me, this King Kong was the real deal. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Yeah, the final battle between these two could have been longer, much longer actually. And the tag team fight against Mechagodzilla could also have been much longer. I do kind of like the soundtrack. I kind of do. It could have been better though. And in my opinion, out of the Monsterverse movies, it gives us what we want the most, the monsters. And I'm hyped to see the new Empire because I heard it's supposed to be even more on the monster. So, whew, I'm gonna enjoy that. And there's some cool things too, like the Hollow Earth and all that stuff, but another aspect I guess I don't like about the movie is that it tries to be three movies in one. It's trying to be King Kong versus Godzilla and Godzilla 3, The Rise of Mechagodzilla, and it's also trying to be Kong 2, Hollow Earth. But I just really don't have that much to complain about this movie. I really don't. I think it's just not a masterpiece of a film, but I enjoy it as it is one, in my opinion. If you don't like this movie, that's fine. It's your opinion. And it's my dream, one of my dreams in fiction, to have like two favorite childhood characters of mine from fiction come together in an official film. I know that's not one of the reasons why I like the original 1962 film, but in my opinion, that was before King Kong and Godzilla, in my opinion, fully evolved as characters. Godzilla was still good and all, but King Kong, I'm sorry, but blah, blah. In my opinion, no offense. I grew up with Peter Jackson's King Kong, and I grew up with the later Showa incarnations of Godzilla. I grew up with the Heisei era, and I grew up with the Millennium era. For me, it's basically a childhood fantasy come to life. I know King Kong vs. Godzilla, I got that, but I wanted to see a modern rematch. I wanted to see them with their, the fully evolved characters they are now. You know, Godzilla and King Kong, they were always good characters, but in my opinion, they were still good characters, but that was the third movie. In my opinion, before they got to really greatly fully evolve as characters, in my opinion. And to see two favorite fictional characters of mine, childhood characters, my favorite movie monsters of all time, crossover, meet, and fight. Oh, it's great. It's special. It holds a special place for me in the world of fiction. And this movie happened. It became a reality. If this movie's a dang reality, the rematch to King Kong and Godzilla, that's a dang reality again. And I never thought in years these two would fight again. But then here it is. I get to hold the Blu-ray in my hands. It's the movie, the rematch. Like, there it is. And hey, I get to at least see Mechagodzilla fight Godzilla again, and actually see Kong fight a Godzilla monster officially. And he, Mechagodzilla had a little standoff with Kong. I enjoyed that. So for me, in my opinion, holds place for like my second favorite King Kong and Godzilla movie of all time. It could be third because there's Godzilla -1, so and I have to full on see that still, but like this is up there on the S tier in my opinion. But that's my opinion though. If you don't like the movie, that's fine. Now, I actually agree as to why somebody would not like this movie, but in my opinion, in my life, and in this house, in my perspective, this will always be one of my favorite movies of all time. Just saying. So, see if I can. So that was my opinion on all the Monsterverse movies. The recap, basically. And I just watched all these movies right now to prepare for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, obviously, to go see it in theaters. Hopefully Sunday, definitely, April 7th. So Godzilla 2014, okay, I appreciate it as a movie though, but I know people are gonna say like, "Oh, what about this and that, the message and that stuff?" It's like Godzilla. I'm sorry, but for me, in Infinity, not even in a million or trillion or a, you know Infinity, this movie will ever be 1954. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. It will never be the original Japanese masterpiece. If you think it is, fine, good for you. But in my opinion, it's not. I never got the message. I didn't feel any emotion, deep emotion, like these movies. I just never got that much with this movie, in my opinion. But if you like the movie, if you think it's a masterpiece, more power to you. More power to you. Literally, more power to you. But In my opinion, it's just okay. Hey, at least I rank it as okay, and I appreciate it as a movie. I'd say in some aspect it's a good movie, but in my own personal opinion, it ranks it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's okay. It's close to decent. Kong's Island, great film. Really enjoy it. Godzilla King of Monsters, breathtaking. Godzilla vs. Kong, absolutely amazing. And that is just my opinion on these films. In my opinion. Warning, my opinion. So, there you go. So let me know down in the comment section below, which is your favorite Monsterverse movie, and what are your opinions on this movie? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you see Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, let me know what you thought about it, but do not, I repeat, do not spoil the dang movie, okay? Okay. So, thank you, everybody, so much for watching, and make sure, if you like the video, be sure to give the video a big thumbs up. I'll see what I can try to work on. I might try to get to a certain stop motion, but who knows? So, there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. And, as good old Kong Spideyzilla says, peace out. And, if you're wondering what's that noise, it's the friendly neighborhood cat that comes to visit me every now and then. So, hey guys, like I said, peace out and have a wonderful day. I love you all.